We've given you some information on how to connect with heart space. We did that last week. Rob and I actually thought this week, as we were talking, that there's a lot of you who might not be able to get into heart space. And we want to talk about that today because we are very well aware that there's many of us around that have a locked, what we would class as a locked heart. And so you're unable to work into heart space because it's almost as if you can't find it. And that's because it's almost, the metaphor is that it's locked up. Now, that can be or usually is around because you've had trauma in your life. Let's just call a general umbrella term of being heartbroken. So there's lots of traumas, incidences, patterns. They could come from this life, it can come from previous lives, it can even come from galactic lives of things that have happened around shame and guilt and betrayal and being isolated and being abandoned, all of those. So we're going to go into that today and just have, not just talk about it, but remember this is a challenge for you. This is the second week of the challenge. And so let's have a look at helping you open up, really open up your heart and unlock what's hidden away. Um, First of all, me and Rob, I really appreciate everybody watching, and we'd really appreciate it if you could like, subscribe, download, and just any comments we'd really love from you. We are getting some comments over email actually, but you can comment in the post below, and yeah, it helps us to understand what more you want from us, what else you'd like to discuss with us, and if there's any problems that you're having out there. Okay, so now let's get to it. Let's have a look at how we can unlock that heartbroken heart. Over to you, Rob, first.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah, we can all access our heart whether it's locked or not.
Hmm,
I
yeah.
want to make that clear. It's never shut off to you, but you might not be able to utilize it because it has shut down. I'm using the term shut down, I think, instead of
Yeah.
locked, because that's a
Mm,
more common phrase we have.
yeah.
You might look at someone you know and say, "Oh, they're really shut down,"
Yes.
and that's an absolute sign that their heart center has closed and locked. And that will be, as you've said a little while ago, through shame, through disillusionment, through trauma, through loss, whatever it might be. Umpteen things cause us to shut off. I've shut down. I remember shutting down as a teenager when my father died. I really closed myself in, and it took me years to crawl out of that. And I dare say you've gone through periods of your life when you've been
Yeah,
shut down because it's a
definitely.
safety mechanism.
It is. It helps to protect
Yeah,
us, doesn't it? It's just what in
absolutely.
in
Yeah,
the world we're living in, it's almost what
yeah,
we do. It's that it is a bit part of a conditioning, but it's what everybody seems to do when we're
yeah.
going through something. Yeah.
Indeed, we do. So it's self-protection, and I think
Mm,
it's self-protection that you will bring upon yourself when you aren't equipped to manage it another way.
yeah. Mm,
And I'm hoping that if people will follow our 12-step challenge here, and
yeah.
which is going to be coming from the point of connecting to heart, understanding energy flow and where you sit in your energy flow, observing your potential and your other possibilities of what you could be and what you can bring back through your heart center, that they might start to realize that shutting your heart down actually isn't as valuable as they think.
Yeah.
It's very much, I believe, a product of the mind.
Yes.
So the mind goes, oh, danger alert, shut down, and out comes the alarm and the yellow tape and everything, and the heart region is closed off because of an accident. It's
Yes.
that kind of image.
Yeah. And I always think the
But
body follows mind. Body
yeah,
works from
absolutely.
mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just as we screen off an accident scene in life, that ticker tape can be taken away, the barriers can be removed. So that's the job we have to do.
Mm,
So how do we do it? And you can only do it by getting into your heart.
mm,
So last week we spoke about how you got into your heart. You can get into your heart space. There was a meditation attached if you want to
yeah.
do it about accessing your heart space. So you might like to do that if you haven't done it already and see what you feel when you're there. But if you are in your heart space and you can't get anything out of the heart space, that for me is key. You can't feel any energy pass through, you can't access what you can see, then that's where we need to work very hard on lowering the barriers and helping you get your energy out. So let's repeat what we call the heart space, or 0 point, whatever you might want to
Yeah.
call it. It is the space that is an energetic space attached to the energy of your heart, through which we receive universal information and through which we return universal information. So it's a communicative space. And if we're shut down, we can't communicate. Not much can get in. A little can, not much can get in. But we don't have the ability to get it back out, and we need to share it in some way or other. So we need to get back into our heart space, and we need to, I'm going to use a big word here, I'm going to use the word sacrifice. And I don't want you to think of sacrifice as in an altar and an animal. I want you to think of it as surrender and becoming sacred. So from that point, when you're in that energy of your heart, observing, you can visualize it quite graphically if you want. You can have something as simple as a lock and a key, or barriers, or however you want to choose to see it, if you feel your heart is not open. But if you observe those barriers and you allow yourself to understand what they're for and why they were there, they will dissolve with your understanding. So by admitting that you are in a place of pure love that can't be damaged, absolutely cannot be damaged by anyone or anything, you're safe to let those barriers melt away. And that sounds perhaps a little esoteric and a little easy and a little bit of a cop out, but it really is that simple. So if you're in your heart space, and like me, you've got your hand on your heart, because I do that all the time, and you feel, so you can feel pain sometimes when your heart is blocked, physical pain. You can go into it and go, what is it? What's blocked? And let something go. What is a piece of trauma that I'm holding on to that has absolutely no use to me? And when you let trauma go, your heart will begin its process of reopening. It's a bit like watching a great lotus unfold in terms of energy terms, and that it allows itself to come back to life again. And the more that your heart, or that lotus of energy, opens, the more, or the easier it becomes to let barriers down. And it is that simple in a strange way. The difficulty is accepting that you have the barriers and that you are safe to let them come down. What do you think, Julie? I mean, how does a locked heart work for you, and how would you unlock it?
Yeah, well, it started off when I saw my first heart, and then I was looking at clients. I think we also discussed it, didn't we, Rob? And
Yeah.
I would look, and people would be stuck with something, and I would metaphorically see with my third eye that there was some kind of, it would look like a cage. It would look like a cage.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. What we did with this, working with the guides, they would show us to unlock it with a key. Grab a key and
Mm.
unlock it. It's all using your imagination, and that then becomes, it almost becomes a game. So we would unlock the heart, but the other side to this is thinking about it. Let's call it in the 3D world. So you can also check about, whether your heart's locked up or not. You'll almost know it yourself, because mainly because of how, what your actions are and what you say to, I'm going to say yourself, or what you might say to others, but it's actually all about what the spells we're putting on ourselves. So would you say, I can't trust anyone? Or would you say, I'll never forgive that person, because I think even forgiveness is around protecting yourself from not having something, the same thing happen to you again. But actually what happens is, because you're still in that frequency, it does it. It just can't not do it, if that makes any sense. It has to do it, because it's just matching that frequency of you where you're stuck in this version of you. This is the way the guides show me, stuck in that version of you that isn't surrendering, that isn't letting go of anything. So yeah, just check with yourself, see what, watch, observe your thoughts and what you're saying around this, all around trust, all around not surrendering, not letting go. And also that you're stuck in, like, that you, the same, what will happen is the same pattern will happen over and over again. Just say this is a relationship, the same could happen in a romantic relationship to what it could be for somebody that you have at work. A similar sort of thing would happen, that you don't trust somebody, and work around words related to trust. Trust keeps coming through to me from the guides, but because if we're being abandoned from somebody, how can we trust them if they're abandoning us? And I had this in a previous life. In a previous life, I could see myself with about 12 children, and I thought my husband's abandoned me, and I thought it meant he'd gone off with somebody. No, he died in that life. But of course, just like Rob's saying, even as a child or even as an adult, it's that feeling of I've been left on my own, I've been isolated, all of these kind of things. And that, understandably, for coming from an ego, and coming from us as a human, working out what's right or wrong, of course that's going to happen. Trauma, feels so bad to us. But when you can understand the point of view that we get from the guides, that all of this is just part of, let's call it, the false reality out there. The lesson is to move away from that and come into a beautiful energy of surrendering, of trust, just trusting in yourself. The very first thing is loving yourself, trusting yourself, surrendering to yourself. Everything is to yourself. So we don't self-sabotage, because it's remembering that everything that you see going on the outside of you, and everything that's happening, what you think to you from other people, is just part of your soul's plan, part of this experience that soul wanted. And the only lesson from here is that you're understanding how to move away from the trauma, not be sat and stuck in that trauma energy. If you imagine that trauma energy with the black cage or a black blob around you, I think Rob, you've described it as barbed wire, haven't you, in the past? Anything
That's
like
often
that as
how
a
I would see it. Yeah,
metaphor.
yeah.
This is what we need to open and just surrender into it, knowing that everything else, I want to say, is the falseness of reality. Anything that feels negative is the conditioning, is how we've experienced things in the past. I want to stress again, the only lesson that we need to learn here is to move away, is to undo and unwind, so that we can become this superhuman. And I might be going too far ahead with this, but it's so that we are able to truly work in heart space. And so remembering that the cage is there because you've thought in the past, somebody has done this thing to me. But now we need to remember there's no need to think like that. A lot of things, um, there are many ways we can release trauma. But I always think the biggest way is just going, do I even want that anymore? How is it serving me? If it's not serving me, I'll just get rid of it. I won't go into the depths of it. I just want to choose right now. Let's just remove it. Let's just surrender to it. So we can maybe talk about, this kind of surrendering and letting go, Rob, because that is the hardest thing. You hear it
It
in
is the
people when
hardest
they're
thing.
saying, I will
Yeah.
never forgive that person. And remember, and on YouTube, I'm moving my arm out to the outside, because it is all about, we're seeing what's in the outside, but we're forgetting that what's going on in that 360 outside world is a match to the frequency, to the version of yourself you are placing yourself in right now. And it's a case of moving the energy, shifting the energy to a new version that is this beautiful version of you that is all loving, all encompassing. And we'll let Rob explore that a little bit more because,
Yeah.
Rob, you've talked about a beautiful thing about the energy,
Yeah, I'll get that
things.
in a sec. One of the things that makes it really hard and a little frightening to let those barriers go is the pain involved.
Yes, yes, of
Because when you've
course.
shored something up in your heart energy and you want to release it, there is a degree of pain that will be
Yes,
experienced as something passes from it and you let it
yes,
go.
yeah.
You have to let all sorts of dark thoughts out,
Yeah. Hmm.
and they're not easy to let go sometimes. Our mind will say, "Oh, hold on to that," because that's actually keeping you in a better, yes, keeping you safe.
Hmm.
You have to override your mind and your ego, and you have to let it go and
Hmm.
trust in this place of pure love.
Yeah.
And it's when you're in that place of pure love, with or without the barriers, and you observe this. I spoke last week of it being like a sun with an orbit going around it, and that we take the orbit.
Mm.
All that is your energy, and the energy of your multiple selves, and it's all there for you to connect with. It's
Mm.
like catching a thermal and just going with it, and learning how to hold the energy, hold that space, move with the energy because the energy is not static, and connect as you go around with other thoughts, other versions of yourself. And as we do a relay race, you pass the baton on, and people will pass you the baton energetically, and you will pass it on energetically as well. It's about not keeping something to yourself. We say
Yes.
very, very easily all the time that we sit still and we go within ourselves, and it's all terribly still and one person centered. But this is really fluid because the energy flows continually
Mm.
in directions that you can just pick and fly with. So you aren't, although you might be sat in one space as I am now, your energy is just free to go where it wants. And it will travel you to the most amazing places once you hop on the thermal and go with it.
Yep. Hmm.
And allowing yourself to connect with other versions of you out there will allow you to understand pain and trauma, allow you to bring that back to your heart center, go, I recognize that, but it's not mine anymore.
Hmm.
Goodbye. Let it go.
Hmm.
So I would really love to say this is a quick and easy process. You just sit down, go into your heart center and go, bye bye, pain. I'm done with you. Unlock my heart. It's not that simple. It can take a while, and you need to allow yourself that time because it builds up over a lifetime.
Yeah. Mm.
Really does. And I would say, and you would probably say, that our hearts are currently unlocked.
Yes.
But I can just in the corner of my eye go, watch that one.
There are other things.
There.
I also think, Rob, there's levels. As you get to a new
Yeah.
level, we could talk about levels, but yeah, you think, oh, that's it, that's solved. I've got rid of that. I've surrendered and I've let go. I've got rid of that trauma. Yahoo! And then something else comes in, and it could be that trauma that's just coming into test, and it isn't really a test, but it's just
Yeah.
test. It's on because of your frequency. You just haven't quite moved in to that other version of you that you were seeing in yourself. That version of you that's always there. That's the that's the corrected version, if we want to call
Yes.
it. As I'm just seeing it from the
Yeah.
guide's point of view, with no ego. They don't have an ego, so yeah, but that lovely version. But again, if we understand that, which would you rather be in? Even understand it like that. And of course, yes, as Rob said, sometimes it's going to take people a little while because there's a process. There's a process to all of this. If it's particularly in connection with a guilt and truth and shame
Mm.
and a loss and all of that, you have to go through a process. We're human. Um, but if it's still going on 40 years down the line, think about how is it actually served you. And this is where really thinking, and this is why we say going to heart space, and even though it's locked and everything, but really think. You can even do this thinking, with your frontal lobe and thinking about it. How has it served you, and is it
Mm.
affecting your life right now? Because you can't trust, how are you going about your business, and how are other people perceiving you? If you can't trust yourself, how can the trust is another frequency. It's all around you trusting others, but equally, Can they trust you? And would you really want to be
Mm.
somebody who can't be trusted? That's just one. I don't know why I keep coming up with trust. It's just an easy one to talk about. But there's all
It's
sorts of
huge.
other things. Isolation, abandonment. Do we really want to feel abandoned? And it comes from within. It still comes from within. And we can still have intuition. We can still use third eye. The other thing Rob and I discussed is we might get some comments that why use heart when you can use your third eye and your crown chakra, but it's a beautiful way of we need to be in a love. The crown chakra and the third eye, it doesn't quite bring in the frequency of love, that love aspect that will help you still to that you can connect with guides the other way. But are you actually doing are you actually doing any good with that? Are you actually listening to them? Are you actually taking on board and changing that frequency, changing yourself into a new version of yourself? Yeah. So.
Yeah, you're right. And as far as I'm concerned, your pineal gland and your crown chakra, or third eye,
Mm,
can't effectively work if your heart is not fully open,
yeah. Yeah.
because then there is a
I
blockage in
understand.
your energy system, which will block energy flowing in
That's right.
here or here.
Yeah.
So they don't stop working, but they are reduced in their effectiveness, as it were. But I'm glad you said as well that you can think about this
Hmm.
outside of your heart space. You can think about it
Yeah.
critically as well.
Yeah.
Once you've accessed your heart space, perhaps, and experienced what are the pains that caused me to close
Yeah.
this down,
Mm, mm,
when you're
yeah.
back in this reality, this 3D reality, you can still think about those as well. And think about what are the labels that are placed upon me that put me in boxes, that shut
Yes.
me down.
Mm,
Why did I react this way to that comment? And you can take that back to your heart center
yeah.
and yourself to deal with that from the right place. But I'm not advocating that when you're in your heart center, which is a place of pure and unconditional love, that you are devoid of critical thinking.
Mm, mm,
But when you're in that space, that's not the time to apply it. So critical thinking is fabulous, but not right now when you're in your heart space. So bring that knowledge down and fix it in your heart space. And then when you're out of your heart space, you can think
mm. Another
and be
way to,
rational about
yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, another way, yeah, the rational, it's about actually sitting down. If you want to do it in 3D and think about it in your mind, it's about sitting down. It's still about sitting in the stillness so that you
Yes.
can listen to yourself, listen to what might be going on. You can, we might call it journaling. So you might want to write it down. Not everybody does. You might want to scream it out. That's absolutely fine as well. You might want to shout out the anger. Absolutely fine. So there's a lot of things you can do in 3D that will then help you to open up that heart space, when you're finally ready to just take that key and unlock that
Yes.
cage around your heart. So yeah, there's a lot of things that can be done. I always want to say, you have the choice to do it. I'm just going to say right now, Rob, about this choice. What's the choice? If you don't do it, what happens if you don't do it? And what happens if you don't, ride the roller coaster that becomes the path to ascension? Hmm. What do you think about that, Rob? Is there a choice actually of not doing
Yeah.
any of this because I've decided I want to be live a life of misery because I'm still not trusting people. It'd be hard for
Absolutely.
me to not trust.
Yeah.
What do we
There's
do
always a
there?
choice, isn't there? Everything comes
Yeah.
as a choice,
Mm,
and you need to want to ride the wave of ascension
mm,
to come on this journey.
yeah.
You can choose not to ride on the wave of ascension, and that is absolutely fine, and nothing will happen to you. But you will stagnate.
Yeah,
You
that's what
will
we feel.
stay in an old way of thinking. You will. Let's not go into politics. Let's avoid that completely, shall we?
Yeah.
But you will not think out of the box. You won't think new positive ideas. You will think and live old ideas, and that is just fine. No one's
If you
stopping you
want to
doing
do
that.
that. Mm,
But the joy and the thrill of the roller coaster of heading towards a new reality is so darned exciting. I can't understand why
yes.
people don't just get on board right away.
Yes.
What on earth are you losing,
When
waiting for?
yeah.
if you're not on this journey now, what on earth are you waiting for?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we're giving out tickets here, so come on,
Yes,
get on our roller
the
coaster with
train
us.
ticket.
I've left
Yeah.
thermals behind now. I've gone on roller coaster.
Yes.
It is
Yeah,
it is a thrilling journey,
it is.
full of
Yeah.
revelations, and it's just extraordinary. But if you don't want to do it, the answer is nothing will happen to you.
And
And that
definitely
actually is
nothing
the
will
sad
happen.
fact of life.
Yeah.
Nothing will happen to you.
Yeah. Or the same thing, the Groundhog Day will happen, the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
old thing, and you're waiting for things to change. But
yeah,
because you are on the same frequency, in the same version of yourself, you're holding yourself there.
yeah,
That's the technical,
indeed.
how the guides, this is how the guides show me and Rob, they're showing us versions of yourself that are stuck there,
Yeah,
that you're not
you'll have the same aches
moving.
and pains.
Yes, because you're
You'll
not
get a new
listening.
job that is worse than the last job.
Yes, yes.
You'll
Have
get into a
accidents.
new relationship that actually doesn't work either.
Even worse. Yes, even
All
worse.
these things, your car will not pass its MOT. It's just a litany of
Cadets.
blocks,
Yeah, yeah,
stoppages, and none of us need those.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And let's not pretend that getting on board the New Earth roller coaster is free of all these things,
Oh, yes.
but it
Yeah.
starts to free you. And the faster that roller coaster goes, the more you just throw away and the more you embrace. And life just starts to drop into place.
It does, definitely. It literally, as we just keep repeating ourselves, but
Mm.
everything's about the frequency here.
Yeah.
That yeah, which would you rather have? And that's the lessons. You can stay stuck, and that feels I know I say it, and it feels really cold and callous, doesn't it? But it's literally from soul and from the guides, and it's because of the compassion, how passionate they are, and how passionate me and Rob are in helping you change those lives. The other side I'm thinking of is, we as healers, and anybody else out there, we love to work. I love to work with other healers and star seeds and light workers. But if you're not healing yourself, and you're not understanding about the healing of others, and you're putting your trauma energy onto others unaware, um how does that feel for somebody else, when all of a sudden they're going out and they've got all your trauma? Because you're thinking, it might be that you're thinking, I'm just sending love, just sending, some energy through, sending love. But if you've got all the trauma, you have to make sure that you're not sending any of your attachments, any of your imprints as well. In the new healing, essentially the basic thing about this is, we're here just to exchange data codes, the healing data codes. So we have to understand that when we're working with a client, whether that's in close proximity or at a distance over the computer, etc., is that we shouldn't be giving out any of our trauma. And it's hard, as Rob said. We're still dealing with, we're always going to have those bits of blocks and bits of more trauma coming up, because how many of us have started working on this bits of trauma and then said, oh goodness me, what more is there? I've done this and something else has come up. But that's just part of, let's call it the game, the different levels. I like to call it, the way I like to explain it is a level. You finish level one. Oh no, now level two has a whole host of other issues that we would see, and the guide says there are no issues. You just deal with them, you just move forward into the next version. It's just because you're moving into a next version that you've never experienced before. Imagine having a version of yourself that is happy, that is this wonderful soul. And of course, many of us, there are going to be times, it's going to be roller coaster. So you can you can have happiness in any moment that you can choose, despite what's going on in the outside world. And I think that's a lot of what the guides want to express to us about, in terms of then how we are, ascending, just bringing in, the amount of this, we'll call it unconditional love, but it's actually hard to explain. This frequency of love is hard to explain, because the other side to that, when you bring this frequency of love in, because you've felt it in heart and you've felt it from the guides, overwhelming, it's like an overwhelm. It consumes you, but in a good way, over, it sort of, it just comes over your body, washes over. That then, if you're in that love space, there is absolutely no way at that moment in time you can be in fear about anything. anything that comes up for you. And that's what we're aiming for. That's, the thing that the guides are talking to us about, that we can overcome anything, even if it takes time. There is no time, is just a construct in consciousness that's created for certainly the earth and humans. It will feel much different as we go as we move and work in the galactics, as we're probably just going to go around in cycles, being human, then being galactic, being human, in many many millions of years to come. But there we go, we're only looking at
But
what we're just dealing with, what we need to do
yeah,
in this life at the
that's
moment.
always by choice, though.
Yes, yes,
We'll
it is,
always
of course.
choose that reality that
Yeah,
we incarnate as and come
yeah,
back as
yeah,
or go on as. So yeah, I think that's probably enough from us
yes. Yeah,
because it's
hopefully that's
quite a lot
helped.
to swallow in one go,
It is, yeah.
I think, and I hope people will take it seriously because it's really, really beautiful work when you do it.
Yes, it really is.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
for all the little moments of pain that it brings, the release, the freedom from tension and the freedom
yes,
that it
yes,
can bring is so worth it. So,
yeah,
so worth it.
yeah.
So
Mm.
let's hope people come along on this with us.
Yes, yeah,
Week two of the 11 of the 12-week challenge.
yeah.
So, Julie, what's the challenge going to be this week, and what's the
Right.
exercise going to be?
The exercise. I'm going to do a meditation to unlock the, the cage, if you like, the metaphoric cage. But I do think we also need to give you something, like a journal and exercise, something to, that you can think about in here, and give you something to, about your thoughts. What are you thinking to yourself? So something that you will need to sit back, have, take some time out, sit back and think about, and I also want to say, without thinking too much of it, because we're
Yeah,
not sitting, we don't want you to sit in total trauma and get even, because that usually makes it worse. But we're doing an exercise that then will get you out. What's the benefit from getting out of that? So we'll get some help for you. We'll get some exercises for you to do. Okay. Right.
grand.
So hopefully you've enjoyed this. Please let us know if you've struggled with this, if this is triggering you, and maybe we can help from that. Anyone who feels so triggered, and once we've helped clients through this, even though it's been a process. We've helped ourselves through some of the other levels, we're at certain levels and
Mhm.
certain stages. So please get in touch with us, if you need our help. Okay, so we will see you next week for challenge 3. Bye for
Bye now.
now.